Hey guys, welcome back to Cereal at Midnight. My name is Heath Holland. I'm joined by my friend Joshua Jabcuga. Josh, what's going on, man?
Hey Heath, how are you?
So you have brought this interview, you put this together. I want to give full credit where credit is due. You have put this interview together with Brad Henderson from TerraVision, and you did all of this. And so you're taking point on this interview. I think I asked the first question, but you set us up a little bit about what we're about to see here because we've already recorded the interview, so we know how it went, and it was pretty awesome.
So, if you've ever listened to Brad Henderson before, you know that he is very passionate about film. And what I can tell you is you're in for a treat with this interview because Brad is coming from a very, I think, maybe a unique point in his life right now. And I think you're going to see that shine through in the interview. You're going to see his passion and enthusiasm for uh, film and for everything that's taking place right now at TerraVision.
Brad's a cinephile. That's what it comes down to. It's like
Yes,
he's a cinephile. I should mention to people who are like, "Who's this Josh guy?" So you've done multiple commentaries with me here at Serial at Midnight. We did a commentary for Batman. We did one for The Rocketeer, I believe. We also did one for They Live, which is probably my favorite thing that we've done. You are a comic book writer who wrote. You worked with Joe Lansdale on the Bubba Hotep and the Cosmic Bloodsuckers comic, and you currently work for All Elite Wrestling. I see you representing the company with your hoodie right now.
I do, but all my opinions are my own only,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
not. Re-
Opinions expressed. But this is Brad. This is all Brad. So I don't think this is a good setup. You ready to roll with it? Is that good?
Let's do it, man.
Without further ado, Brad Henderson, TerraVision. But like,
Yeah,
how are you doing? I saw your tweet the other day. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? I saw your tweet, not about the warehouse, but about like you just feeling kind of, yeah. How you doing,
Yeah.
man?
No, it's just been rough. Yeah, like I said, I'm not very personal when it comes to online, but yeah, it's I had two deaths like back to back, and then last year I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. It's been something I've been dealing with, but um
jeez.
it was it acts up every once in a while. It tends to bleed. So when it bleeds, I get like immense pain to where I like can't function. And it was one of those days. Probably the worst it's been since I originally discovered that I had it. So I just kind of felt down. So I wasn't looking for like, sympathy or anything, but it was just like in home video, a lot of people, pick on labels, pick on us because we're slow or we're not putting stuff out. And, there's a huge, I mean, there's so many different reasons why things take so long in this industry. But when you don't really have, um, you know, sometimes momentum yourself because life gets in the way, it can really delay a lot more. So it was just a way to kind of maybe alleviate like nasty emails, asking us where, we announced something a year ago, where is it? It's like that sort of thing. Because I mean, I love doing this, but at the same time, it's um a lot of people suck. So there's that. You do deal with a lot of idiots like
Yeah.
in this business and stuff. So it's kind of it's just kind of rough. So
So you're suggesting physical media collectors are not the most patient and understanding of human beings.
oh no, 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 not at all. I mean, there's a lot of goodness in it, and I don't know if there's more good than bad because I think everybody kind of has like their own issues um
Mhm.
in a way, with whether it's like OCD or shipping or blind buying or thinking that they need to buy everything that you put out, fetishizing over labels. I think is a big no-no because it can get you very upset. Expectations, you know um I also think they don't really broaden their like scope of what they watch because they only want like Return of the Living Dead 3 disc steelbook next rather than a new movie that they've never heard of. So it's like you fight against multiple things, and we don't really let it affect the business too much, but there is like, we want to keep expectations in check because that's what can hurt you. We don't really tease like something bigger than it actually is ever, because I realize that gets you in big trouble, and I see a lot of labels do that.
There's a lot of people doing that, and you can burn yourself real quick because if you don't
Yeah,
deliver
yeah,
like,
it's just you're going to upset people, and then they're going to turn against you for no reason really. But like, you just I always tell people to keep their expectations in check. And but it doesn't matter, because you just have these like really angry people that are, just, I mean, we get death threats because it's like someone's always going to find, you know they're going to find something to be upset about. Even if they're not like buying something or subscribing, they're still going to find something to be mad about, even though it doesn't affect them, just to be angry. It's kind of
Yeah,
like that online mob mentality of
that-
like people are just like angry at a celebrity for being rich,
yeah,
like that sort of thing. It's just like I just hate social media in general, even though
yeah.
it does flow and keep the companies alive, and companies can thrive. It's just, I don't know. I just this whole world has just been, I've like recounted a lot over the past few years because my dad passed away like 3 years ago, and I've just kind of took a step back and like try to enjoy like life a lot more, rather than, it's kind of like one of those things where, I'm sorry, I'm like jumping from like
no,
subject
it's
to
cool. This
subject.
is real. That's
but
this. Go ahead.
but there was back in school, you just realize that that it takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile. So it's more energy. The same thing as like writing an angry review on, or making an angry video. It's just like negative energy put out there. And yeah, I mean, if you are angry, I mean, I'm saying you can't speak your mind, but I just think there is kind of like this needless, like, angry mob mentality that people have, rather than just enjoying what you do have, you know? It's like you're angry for people putting out movies that you don't want. Why? What's the point? You got a million movies that you do like that you might want to buy.
But Brad, do you ever feel like the people that complain the loudest, that sort of social media mob mentality that you mentioned before, is that just like a microcosm? Is that just a small percentage of the people that truly, 10% versus the 90% that really love what you do, but we just don't get online to say, hey, I really love TerraVision, versus the people that are like, oh, they're putting this out and it's whatever. Do you
Yeah.
ever feel as if you're not getting the full spectrum just because the fans don't really necessarily come out and tell you, they just support you with their dollars, but they might not support you with, you know, writing on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think there is. I mean, I think we all do it in life. And, I'm sure Heath can speak to this. And I mean, you too, is that, you could have a video and it gets, 200 positive comments, but you have the one comment that is negative towards you, your looks, or your taste. When you read the reviews, you're going to remember the negative one, and I think we all tend to do that. That's why they say don't read the comments. So but when people do say they love you, it, or love what you do, or praise you, it does give you the satisfaction on what you're doing. But sometimes the negative comments is like, well, do other people think that, and can we actually make something better? Is it a valid comment or not? Which they're mostly invalid. But we do listen to those, but you tend to hold on to negative comments more than anything. I think everybody does. It's the same thing as if, like, a woman gets her hair done and 100 people at the office say it's nice, but then some negative person says, what did you do? That you're gonna drive home and be in your car and go home and think about, like, what did I, like, what's wrong with me?
Right.
I think we all do that as humans. But I do think something I think I have noticed. Now, I don't have like data or hard proof, but you can kind of tell when people do buy things versus what they talk about. I think a lot of complainers actually don't buy stuff. and they just want to complain, because when you do have like a sale or something, they'll say, oh, I finally purchased something, and you'll catch them because, oh, this person's been complaining like for 2 years about us, but now they haven't bought one thing. And I think that's the case. I think you do have people that, and this is rightfully so, because money's, life is hard, bills are hard, is that you don't have disposable income, so sometimes you do wait for sales or deals or just buy your movies at Big Lots because they're cheap. But I do think you have those people that wait for that stuff and they just want to complain about other things, like, oh, re-releases on 4K, which I understand that there's like a contingency with a company that releases something and then like follows it up like a year later with a UHD. I do think that's kind of silly. But I do think there is like, you're not being forced to buy anything. That's the other thing, is we all have our own free will to do what we want, and I don't think people like kind of realize that. And I do think a lot of people probably put themselves in debt for physical media, which I think is crazy.
Yeah.
Which you see that all the time, where people like, oh, they get credit cards, and then they you see it like on these like Facebook groups, like in Vinegar Syndrome groups and other groups too. It's like people have all these movies sealed and now they're selling because they have a bill to pay. Well, why did you buy it to begin with? Just for it to set on your shelf? That's not very responsible, you know
Yep.
I mean, I buy movies to watch them. Sure, I have plenty that are sealed because I've seen them 100 times and I haven't gotten around to watching them yet. But like, I do think there's like this big group like that pretend that movies are kind of like stamps or something. Like they just
Baseball
buy them.
cards.
Yeah,
Josh
Golf
and I talk
carts.
about this all the time. They're baseball cards.
right. And it's like, I mean, if that's your prerogative and you have the money to do that, that's fine by me. I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money, but I do think it's irresponsible to do something like that. That I can say.
Yeah, I think too. I mean, that's an easy trap for some people to fall into with, I mean, Vinegar Syndrome does an incredible job with marketing. Like you could literally teach a course just on how they market to the consumer. But unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people that get hooked on this baseball card mentality or like the comic book boom of the 90s where it's like, oh, this has got multiple, slip variants. And for whatever reason, some people are just attracted to that collector mentality. The film is a distant second. It's like, oh, I didn't even watch the movie. I don't even know what it's about. But that slip cover, that slipcase, ooh, I need that. And it's like,
Yeah.
really? Like it's easy for some people to fall in that trap, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, like again, if that's their own prerogative and what they want to do, I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money or whatever. But I do think that a lot of people need to take a step back and just think about what they're going to buy, and make sure you're taking care of yourself first and your family, and financially not putting yourself at risk for a movie that you're not going to watch just to have it. And and it's the same thing as like, as people, we have created the exclusivity and the demand. I mean, I was buying tapes. I was either getting them for free or 25 cents when I was younger, and now tapes are going for $400 or $500.
It's
And
crazy.
it's like, they're not worth that. No one's saying that is actually worth money. You're saying that it's worth money. You're the ones that have created this market. And yeah, I mean, things can be rare, but nothing is worth that much money. Like, and I mean, it could really go for anything, like baseball cards or whatever. Just the rarity and exclusivity. And there's comes a point where it kind of like clashes against preservation, for film, because if you have a movie that's unavailable, for um 30 years, and you put out a movie and it's limited to like just 2000 and done, it sells out with these collectors, and then the movie's not available again, what was the point? Because now the movie's still obscure and not available to watch, so what did you actually do?
Well
you
said.
know
Yeah.
so there's like a big portion where I think even the mission from certain companies kind of gets lost, because of money and business and corporation type structures, is that you sell out a movie and it's like, oh, where can I watch it? You can't. You got to spend $400 on eBay for it. Well, that's dumb. Like, you didn't actually help the longevity of the movie at all. Like, you've created a market that's so exclusive, and now a normal person that actually wants to see the movie can't, because they didn't have $40 to spend at the time of the limited edition, but this person with the 10 credit cards bought everything up so that they can resell it or just sit on it or wait for it to sell out and then try to flip it. And that's like the market now. And it's really like, it's really weird. That's why we put all our movies on eBay. Like, through our, like, for TerrorVision, we have the Gray Face account on eBay, and we sell our movies for the price that they sell on the site. So when people look up, a movie, from either another country, or maybe they don't know who TerrorVision is, they'll type in, the movie, and then they'll see that ours is the same price as someone that's trying to scalp. Or, you'll see it on eBay a lot, because I buy, obviously, movies myself. Is that you'll look for something and it will automatically say rare or out of print when it's not, because it wants to give the presence of it being exclusive. And, oh, you need to spend. So people themselves are doing it. Rare, hard to find, out of print, slipcover, you know, $75. And people are just like, it's $75, buy it now, I'm gonna get it. Meanwhile, you can get it probably from like Orbit or Diabolic for the price that it was actually out, but you're not taking the time because you get excited, you think you're getting a deal. And again, that's the same kind of the same tactics I think other websites use too. So it's fine to tell things are going out of print. We're guilty of that too. That's not the point, because you could only print up so many. You have a license that, and again, to kind of rewind, a lot of things have to be exclusive because of license issues or whatever it may be, because sometimes it's again, to speak on behalf of the labels now, because that's more or less a customer consumer perspective, is that as a label, you have to compete with what people want and desire, because you can't release a movie now in a standard edition Amray case just with the movie and no slipcover. You can't do that. You need a booklet, you need a slipcase, you need something else. You
need
just
value added material put on there too. You need commentaries if you can get them, and
right,
whatever else.
Yeah, you spend the extra money and stack these discs, and then you create a pretty package with a slipcover and everything, and you put that out and you have the movie available to you. But then you print up 8,000 copies. Oh, it's available, and it sells fine for a period of time, but it doesn't really move, because these other companies are releasing these more bigger sets and more lavish sets, and they're only limited to 1,000 with a site exclusive with their original artwork or something. So that $40 you did have to spend on physical media that week, it will go to that limited edition, while your movie sits there, while it's plenty of slipcovers, plenty in stock, but people are going to buy these exclusive movies. Next week, another company does the same thing. Next week, another same thing. So your product that has a slipcover will never move. And then people will decide to wait on a sale in order to save, $5 on shipping or whatever it is. So now you're in a position where you have to create, a more limited edition along with your standard edition. And we've kind of proved that with Frogman. Frogman would have probably never had a deluxe release like that, because historically, and this is why a lot of companies don't put out new movies, and we do, and we've kind of suffered for it, is that people don't want newer movies on physical media. They'll tell you they do, but they don't, because they want to stream it for free with the service or Tubi or whatever it is. No qualms about that, because money is not, people don't have disposable incomes, and I completely understand that. I'm not ragging on you, but there is a time where you do have people will just rather stream your movie than buy it, which is completely fine. You're going to buy this new transfer, this UHD from this 1986 horror movie, which again, to me, that's even more appealing than the newer movie. I agree. I'm not going to argue with you. But the problem is that that new movie will just sit there because it, for some reason, like when you get past like 2007, people kind of turn off their sense of wanting movies past those years. Historically, new movies, unless it's something big, unless you released like Barbarian or something, your movie is not going to move that much. And we've learned that through the new movies we've done. Our catalog for newer movies past 2007 is a lot, and those movies tend not to do so well. So we have Frogman, which we were very excited about. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. We acquired it, and we're going through this kind of transitional phase behind the scenes. I'm like, well, why don't we actually like beef it up? Why don't we give it more, bells and whistles and make it look important? Because it is, we want this movie to be successful. So, we do a booklet, we do a CD, and we kind of have fun with the whole campaign. We get into a mode of like what TerrorVision was originally created by Ryan when he was doing records, to kind of have more fun with our releases. And we kind of went all out on Frogman. We had T-shirts, we had mugs, because the stuff's in the movie. It's not like we made this stuff up on a whim. We did the postcard, we did the map that they actually find in the movie, that sort of thing. We did frog sounds on the soundtrack, which is stupid and funny. Historically, Frogman should have never sold the way it did because it's also a new movie. It's a found footage movie and it's streaming everywhere. So why would it do well? It literally has 3 negatives against it. It sold out in 9 days. Why? Because it was 1,000 copies limited with that edition, and the people that wanted to collect it collected it. And then secretly, we had the Walmart version that went in, and we made 10,000 for Walmart, and we put it into 2,600 stores across the United States. It went wild with the normal people that want to buy movies. Success. We were able to please both parties, and we did successfully, and I was super happy about it. Literally one of the biggest and greatest things we've done as a company, I feel, because we were able to hit both markets. And then we will have a standard edition for people that don't want the limited edition, that don't want to spend $40 on a hard box and all that. They just want to have the movie on their shelf physically, so when it goes off streaming, they're able to watch it again. So
How many of those, the other people, the non-collector people, do you think are out there? You don't have to
I,
give me a number, but like,
I
are
think
there
there's
many?
more. I do think there's more. But I think the collectors are more vocal because they're the ones that don't they're the ones that have the biggest voice because a lot of those collectors are YouTubers. A lot of those collectors have strong online presence. They're on the forums and they're talking to other people that care about that. And that's completely fine. I have no problem with it. I just wish that the fundamentals of loving cinema and watching movies was there too for everybody. Because I think in the home video market, that was lost at some point. And we got too many people that didn't care about movies kind of trickle in, and they've kind of put their foot down and made an imprint and have influenced other people. I don't have any data to back this up. I don't have any proof, but as I'm, I think I'm the prime candidate because I think I think a lot of people think that people behind the labels just release movies to get money, and they don't realize that I probably have more movies than you do. That sort of thing. I've been buying movies since I was a little kid. This room wraps around, and I have another room that wraps around just with home video. I'm a consumer too. So anything that Arrow announces, Scream Factory, I'm buying movies too. Like that's the thing. I also run a label, and I've been with 3 labels. I work for Wild Eye Releasing, when I very first started, which is not a collector mentality. That was just putting out B-rated horror films, if you want to call them that. And then I worked, at Vinegar Syndrome for, 7 years doing acquisitions and producing. Meanwhile, I'm on all these platforms. I'm the one that always had a Twitter account. I used my Facebook account to talk to people. I was on the forums. I was on these chats. I'm on Discord. I'm the one talking to all these people versus a lot of these companies. You don't know who's who sometimes. They're not the face of whatever. I don't own any of these companies, but I've always, as a consumer, want to talk to other consumers on a consumer level. And I'm buying this stuff too. So I think I've had a pretty good feel of what people want, what people expect, and also kind of the ding dongs that come along with it of these like whatever they want. I can't even explain it because it's something that I don't want and I don't actually look at as a plus. People literally want a label to release a movie so it has cooler packaging. I've never wanted that. I just want the movie to come out. you know the only thing I would care about is sometimes companies that do release things, I know their inner workings of how they do things and what they consider a good restoration versus a not good restoration and kind of the cheap route that people go. Then I care a little bit as a person that cares about restoration and knows how cheap these things can companies can get by on doing things. That kind of hurts me a little bit. But the thing is they're still getting the movie out there. It's still being mass produced. The longevity of that movie of not dying or not going away has been, extended for another 30, 40 years or whatever. And then you say that and you have your desperate people that come in and talk too, but we'll say fuck them. But you do, but the thing is that you're creating another, you're extending the life of the movie, and that's important. Even if it's like a subpar restoration, it's better than what we've probably experienced with the YouTube rip on YouTube. And plus, it's legal. It's a legal release, and a lot of these, films don't. And a lot of movies have to live through piracy because of this sort of thing too. So uh, there's so many factors into this that I don't think a lot of people take account because they're too worried about if their slipcover is going to come dinged or not. You know, and I was always the kid. Now I'm not slashing up my slipcovers whenever I get them, but I was always the kid that scuffed my new shoes so I didn't have to worry about scuffing them later. I was always that kid. I played basketball, so I always had like the nice basketball shoes, and I would just literally like kind of just brush them up against the sidewalk or something on purpose. So I had a little scuff that was that little imperfection. Where if I got another scuff, it didn't bother me because I already had them scuffed, so it didn't bother me. I'm always the one that takes advantage of Jesse's diabolic dinged and scrape sale because every time I get something, I can't find the imperfection on it. That's what I do. It's sitting on a shelf. you know I only see the spine, and then I'll pull it out and watch the movie. Don't even get me started on our artwork. It feels like everybody puts their movie face forward and they look at it every day.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any movies facing forward. I know some people do in order to like, maybe fill in a gap or something. But, I think that people are so like hyped up on other stuff rather than the restoration, preservation, the longevity of the movie, and actually being able to see it again. That's the most important part of this. And that's why I'm here, and honestly, that's one of the kind of the, I mean, there's multiple reasons, but that's why I didn't want to work at VS anymore. I didn't like kind of the trajectory, and nothing against them. They do great work. I still buy all their movies, and they are one of the best in the game. But I kind of like the punk rock attitude of this stuff. And, there's people that have been in this business, RIP to Bill Olson. I bought Code Red DVDs at Best Buy. When Severance started in the early 2000s, I was buying DVDs from them like 2000, I don't know, 2006 is when they started or something. Alternative cinema, subversive cinema. I would buy a lot of their stuff from, Kino International before it was Kino Lorber. I would buy their stuff at Virgin Megastore. So, I mean, there's a lot of influence that I had of these companies that were bringing some of these like really hard to find movies out on home video. And it was a great time. And it still is. It's the best time for physical media is this. Every year it gets better and better, but I don't, it's like one of those, it's like an actor that gets popular, you don't want to know, you want to remember where you came from. You still want to be that person that you originally started as. And that I feel that I've continued to say that, and I'm not patting myself on the back or think I deserve anything special, but I've made sure that I've never kind of distanced my way from wanting to bring movies to people, because I like living vicariously through a label, or even when I program film festivals. It's cool because you can't, I always say the biggest crime is you can't watch a movie again for the first time, but you can in a way if you're having someone watch something for the first time, like your child or a friend, and you're sitting in the room with them. You're getting more of a kick about how they're going to react, or them watching it, watching it through them vicariously, of like experience something for the first time. I mean, this is how every probably Star Wars dads feels when they show their kids Star Wars. That is a satisfaction of mine, that I'm able to kind of create that. And I grew up in a video store, and I like really weird things that are unheard of, and I like having people experience that for the first time, and that's where I get the joy out of it. I enjoy bringing lost movies to people, or stuff that's on the verge of being lost or just not really cared for, because the eighth steel book of a movie is going to sell better than the movie that no one has seen. And that is a fact. That's not how this naturally works. But I don't care what that company's doing. That's their thing. That's their thing. This thing is my thing. That's what I strive to try to complete.
You've hit
So
on something there, Brad, because I was telling Heath, I think yesterday, that so before I am a subscriber to Vinegar Syndrome. I became very familiar with your work. Like you were saying, you were out there on social media hyping up titles. And I know TerraVision used to be a partner label with Vinegar Syndrome, correct?
yeah.
So then when you left, I was like, huh, like I almost felt, and again, I'll give you your flowers now. I'm not going to be one of those negative people on the internet, but and it's not bashing Vinegar Syndrome, but I felt to a degree some of their soul left when you left. And I was telling Heath the other day, I said, with TerraVision and Brad, I feel like I'm walking into a mom and pop movie store, rental store, and I go up to Brad at the counter and I say, dude, I've seen everything. Give me something I haven't seen yet that's gonna like, I don't care if it's good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, just make it interesting because, and I trust you. And I feel like with your catalog, we see this unique curation. We see a silent film that's over 100 years old. We see foreign films, we see chopsaki, kung fu movies. Um, I saw a movie the other day, all jacked up and full of worms. I have no idea what
Yeah.
I watched, but
Neither did
it
I.
had
Yeah.
me,
I'm still that
I
way.
was like, I'm on board. Can you speak to us a little bit about that curation process? Is it the chicken and the egg kind of thing where it's like, okay, these titles are available, let's go after them? Is it I want these titles, or is it a combination of the two? How do you get your fingerprints on those titles so it feels like this is a Brad Henderson title? Because that's how I feel with TerraVision, that I'm getting your personal recommendations hand delivered to me.
Well, I greatly appreciate what you said, and that actually makes me feel really good. So thank you. I don't know what all jacked up and full of worms is. I really enjoyed it when I saw it, and it was so. To answer your question, it's a little bit of both. So with kind of like just my kind of past in history is that I was fortunate to grow up in. I would spend most of my time in Florida, because that's where we lived. But I was fortunate to have 3 mom and pop video stores within like a mile, 2 miles, a little bit more probably than that. And I also had a Blockbuster. It was 3 minutes away from my house. And then we would spend summers in Ohio, and our summers there would probably be 3 to 4 weeks because my parents were both retired at a young. They retired young because my dad had a bunch of businesses and he was older, and he was actually retired because he was 55 when he had me. So, he had multiple business that he sold. My mom didn't really work because she was a stay-at-home mom and cared for me. So I was fortunate. All this is being fortunate, being, just having great parents, and they all made very good choices. Um, and we would spend summers in Ohio. It was, like I said, 3 to 4 weeks. And there was a video store that was my Bible. And literally I reference almost every single day of my life. It was called Video Time. And they had a huge selections of so many different films and variety of films and whatnot. And I would spend so much time at both. My mom would drop me off at the video store and go grocery shopping for like 45 minutes while I could look around and grab stuff. Um, she would drop me off at the video store, 45 minutes, go grocery shopping, come back, pick me up when I was ready. So I had plenty of time to read the backs, look at stuff, peruse, make my own list. I also had this really cool thing before IMDb was a thing called All Movie Guide. And it was a disc that you could put in. I think we got it when we bought our like compact computer. We just got this like, you get free like games and whatever. And it was IMDb basically. And it was just like a list, and you click on horror and read all the horror films. And it just had like tens of thousands of movies. Um, in doing that, I researched a lot. I learned a lot, even at a very young age, because I realized that was like my goal. So I started out very young and watching, you know, uh, if you had mom and pop places, they had the weird and more obscure stuff rather than Blockbuster, which had your mainstream. So that said, like I grew up watching, like stuff in our calendar, like Door or not Door, but something like Killer. I saw when I was younger, and that was a movie that was pretty hard to find at the time. Um, so in doing that, I just kind of learned a lot, and I got my hands on everything that I could possibly get. We also had a movie gallery that was close by, and the movie gallery, for some reason, I met the guy that ran it when I was a teenager, because I would go in the horror section on VHS, and there'd be like new, like they're older movies, not stuff from like the 2000s, but he was buying stuff like off eBay and then putting it on the shelf. So I would go into this horror section and be like new tapes all the time. Not new tapes, but former rentals from other stores or whatever. And so him and I started, powwowing and talking. And he was a big horror guy who owned a movie gallery that was essentially a franchise, not a corporation. In our store at Blockbuster, when I started working there, because I started working as a clerk like at 15, and we were able to order things because we were a franchise. So I could go into Ingram, which RIP Ingram now, but I was able to go into Ingram and order like a bunch of stuff that I was interested in, or I wanted to be on the shelf because people like you came in and be like, hey, what's available, what do I like, or what do you like, what would you recommend? I was able to be like, oh, my favorite movie of all time is on the shelf because I fucking put it there, I ordered it, and now it's available. So I was, again, a very fortunate to have like all these like little things in my life. But I also had parents, and my mother especially, who really kind of like loved movies and wanted to watch movies all the time, and she was big into horror. So that, as a very young person, the age of like 3 and 4, my mom was a huge influence on this stuff because she realized I wasn't having nightmares, so I would watch these horror films with her when I was 3 and 4. I've posted videos like online of me dressing up as like Freddy Krueger at 3 years old for Halloween. I knew who he was. I wasn't sheltered from any of that stuff. um so with having parents like that, my parents were big on having movies because they wanted to watch them at any time, because obviously on demand satellite, I mean, you had satellite, but you weren't able to watch whatever you wanted. And we had that, my mom would make dupes of everything we rented. So my video library was a bunch of, transferred tapes from the rentals that she would use. So I had that. My mom, she bought a beta player. We had a laser disc player. We had a CED player. We had all this stuff growing up because they were big on physical media. So I always had that, like, kind of, um, in the background. I was allowed to buy movies. It wasn't like a foreign thing where I said to my mom, like, hey, can we get this tape? It's $20, at like Specs or wherever we're buying movies at. And so that was a big influence again on me. So like physical media and movies have always just been around me all my life. So it was always just second nature. To answer your question, I have just this sheet that's probably like 30,000 titles long of things that I want to release. And I'll see new stuff like Frogman. The hit, like how Frogman happened was that I read about the movie, and the guy that produced the movies, his name's Peter Kaplowski. He's a very good friend of mine. He's one of the programmers at the TIFF Midnighters. And Peter's been producing a lot, and he produced Frogman. So I reached out to him and said, hey, man, I'd like to see this. And he's like, yeah, just ask these dudes. They're the ones controlling it. And so I emailed, Rotting Press, Zach and Mike. And I said, hey, we're home video company. I want to see Frogman. Is it available? They're like, yeah, it's available. Here's a link. And I watched it. I'm like, this is great. And we like acquired it like 2 days later. We have stuff like that. We do have certain things like All Jacked Up and Full of Worms. That was a movie I saw at Fantastic Fest a few years ago. And I like watched it and I'm like, this is kind of gross. It's a little offensive. I like it, that sort of thing. But that came up because, we're not partners with Cineverse, but we're in bed with them. And so they basically said, here's our catalog. Do you want any of these? And I was like, well, I don't want to I don't do package deals because I don't want to release anything I don't like, because Ryan and I have a rule that one of us has to like it, because it can't be anything where it's a package deal. I won't accept it unless I can put it on as a bonus movie or something, which we did like with Copperhead. Motorhome from Hell's on there, which it's a goofy movie, but I would never release it by itself, because that's where you lose your audience. You lose your people that trust your curation or trust the label, and then you put out something just because you have it, and then you know, you lose your audience. And I mean, yeah, our label's crazy with all the movies we have, but they literally are handpicked, all of them. And that's something that we could say and that we're proud of. But yeah, Ryan and I one of us has to like the movie. Yeah, that's kind of how we choose things. So we do watch new movies all the time. Because we've acquired, that's how Malum happened, Frogman, that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean that's what it is. But I also have a long list, and those movies, the older movies, take a lot longer to release because you have to find the rights, you have to find the film material, you have to do a deal. Newer movies are fairly simple to release because they're already done, they're already out there, they're looking for distribution. The momentum's high, so you can be like, hey, we need a commentary, and then tomorrow the filmmaker will turn in one. When you're doing something with old stuff, you have to like, I don't know if I want to talk about it, that was 30 years ago, that sort of thing. So it takes a lot longer for special features to put together. With Frogman, I think Anthony did everything, the director. He got everybody together. They just delivered stuff to me. I didn't even have to do anything. So you have those types of situations where they're a lot easier and a lot faster. So when people say, oh, because we always hear this, like Vinegar Syndrome or Terrorvision's releasing crap because it's all new movies. That's what they'll say. Well, sometimes those newer movies are easy to do. And plus, you want to get it while it's out hot. I don't want to release Frogman from a year from now because people are talking about it now. They're not going to talk about it like I hope they're talking about it a year from now, but they're not going to be because it's going to be off streaming services or new movies. I mean, new movies are coming out every week. So your movie can get buried in a matter of like 6 weeks and no one ever talk about it again. It's very, very easy. So, but yeah, that's essentially why like those happened. And yeah, again, to answer your questions, a little bit of both. It's more or less our list. because that's what we're always like actively working on and doing deals. And that's obviously that's going to sell more because that pre 2007 thing I was telling you about, that's kind of where like the sweet spot is. So, but yeah, I mean, we're looking at, everything from silent movies to newer films. I mean, nothing's off the table. And then we created Gray Face Films, which allows us to do more, maybe art house, non-genre films that I'm super excited about, which we've, released two, which is River and Dawning, and then we've announced that we're doing Big Top Pee Wee. And yeah, Dawning. There you go. Is that
Yes.
signed?
Chloe signed it for me. I like the artwork so much. So shout out to Chloe and
Yeah.
Elena and everybody else behind the scenes there.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, so yeah, Big Top Pee Wee, and then we had recently announced that Melvin Goes to Dinner, the Bob Odenkirk movie that we're premiering in LA next month. So yeah,
So what I like too about the label is, and again, I hate to keep bringing up Vinegar Syndrome, but sometimes the comparisons are inevitable, especially with your past history.
yeah. I mean, I was there for 7 years. I left my imprint. I mean, in their catalog, I probably acquired like 150 movies for them, so it makes sense.
Right. And what I like though is that, see, with Vinegar Syndrome, they have all those partner labels now, and it's like there could be 30 titles a month. There's no way you could even watch those, let alone buy them all, right? What I feel like with TerraVision is I'm getting the core titles plus the partner labels all in one. And it's like that subscription is good for everything, And you mentioned you have the imprint now, the Gray Face Films. All I had to do was drop an email to Elena and say, like, hey,
Yeah.
can I get that? And I mean, it was great. So if anybody's out there that's like on the fence about a subscription, I can't speak highly enough for what you guys do behind the scenes as well.
No,
So
I appreciate that. I'm when we did the gray face thing, we didn't want people to turn their nose against it because of kind of like this imprint, another label, because now it's almost like, labels are kind of like garage bands, like everybody has one at this point, like the new labels pop up. And it, not that's a bad thing because it's just people releasing more movies and more content. I don't think it's really a negative, but for people that want to pay attention, it is hard to pay attention to who's doing what, because even as somebody that buys movies, it's hard for me to keep up. Like half the time I'm like, I mean, that happens a lot with Kino with me. I'm like, oh, that movie, yes, let me look that up. And I look it up and there's already a Blu-ray of it, because I think their output is way too hard, because it's kind of like a almost a collect all at this point. No offense to Frank and those guys at all, but again, it's they're just putting out movies. That doesn't, there's no curation, but it's also gets lost in the ether. But yeah, when we created the label, the imprint for Gray Face, I mean, we needed to, because we saw backlash when we told people with TerraVision you could get a comedy, you might get a kids movie, who knows. And we had a lot of people that are like, well, I don't want to subscribe if I'm going to get a kids movie. And it's like, well, if you do get a kids movie, it's not going to be like, a weird one. It's going to be something probably pretty funny or weird. I mean, I guess it will be weird. But anyways, we saw a lot of negative, and that's where we actually listened. We were like, okay, well, let's pump the brakes. Let's not really do that. What can we do? And with what I wanted to do, there was a lot more I didn't like. And again, another reason why I left VS is that it was so focused on film and on horror and exploitation, which I will always be the front runner of. That's what I love the most. But I also wanted to do musicals or dramas or whatever it could be. Like, I love a lot of stuff. And creating, doing something at TerraVision, but also creating Grayface, that gave us kind of the free reign to do that a lot more. So with Grayface, we're able to put out whatever we want, that doesn't really fit kind of the TerraVision mold, or what we don't think maybe fits. That's the whole thing with Dawning, is that Dawning was done like 6 months before its release. It was just that we didn't know what to do with it, because it felt kind of weird putting it on TerraVision when, there's a whole big other portion of that movie that doesn't really fit with, something like Shrek on our label or something like that, or Wood Chipper Massacre, for Christ's sakes. So, we did, that's why it went to Gray Face. And when we created Gray Face, we were really happy because we just have a bunch of movies that we acquired that we just didn't really know what to do with. So we're very excited about that label, and I hope people realize like we have two little indies from other countries on there, and then we have Big Top Pee Wee and Melvin Ghost Dinner is the other one, and they're both vastly different from one another and vastly different from the two that are in the catalog. And we should be announcing one here in October. That's a small little indie as well, that I hope people like. So
Very good.
What?
We're coming up on an hour. We're closing in on an hour. And I know you've got a lot of things to do today. Let's talk about that sale, the warehouse sale that's going on. And if you want to talk about the reason for the sale too, we should definitely let people know what's going on.
yeah, no, I mean, so we've Ryan's been TerraVision's existed for like 9 years, years before I started, or maybe 7 years. I don't know. But Ryan started this business as a record company first, and at TerraVision, and what Ryan has, I mean, he has we have TerraVision Records, and then we have the soundtrack, with the soundtracks, and we have the movies. Well, Ryan also has Gray Face Records that he's run for about 20 years. That has, he has like 80 bands on that record label. So there's all that stuff. Ryan also has, I don't know, he might be the largest owner of all the arcade games in the world. I don't know. The man has like 500 arcade games or something crazy. So, we have these arcade locations in Savannah and Chicago, at Savannah Mall and whatnot, and at the museum. He also owns, the Oddities Museum. There's one in Chicago, one in Savannah. So he has a lot of weird stuff that he's picked up, between sideshow freaks to John Wasey's actual brain. So there's just a lot of stuff at this warehouse. And the warehouse also was a music venue. We call it the Lodge. So the Lodge is where, a lot of bands come out and play, popular bands. But Ryan's also in multiple bands. He also has a clothing company called Never Not Goth. So it's a wide variety of stuff that, I mean, that's probably not even all the businesses that I'm trying to like think of. So there's just a lot of stuff at this warehouse. They've been there for a number of years, and there's been some issues, but we're finally have to move. Like we're just the hammer's down, and I forget what day we need to be out, but it's very soon. And there's just way too much stuff in that warehouse. And, we're a small business still. We don't have 80 people to help us move our stuff. So naturally, we need to sell some stuff. Also, that money helps us move to a new location. It could put the first month's rent down, but also alleviates all these boxes, because if you can unload, 500, 1,000 movies, that's a pallet that you don't have to move, which is a lot at the end of the day, because your pallet's going to stack high. So anything really helps, especially with records, because records are so heavy, and one box can only have like 10 records in it because it's so heavy. So yeah, selling records and movies, that can really help quite a bit, get that stuff out of there. Because also, Ryan's VHS collection is at that, the Lodge, and music equipment, all this stuff. I mean, there's just so much. And I don't think that a lot of people know, because labels don't have this going on in the background. They don't have someone that owns multiple businesses. It's usually just the label. I think people forget of everything. We also have a rental store with like 20,000 movies to rent in Chicago. We have that in the basement of the museum. So like, I mean, there's just so much going on with our company. A lot of the stuff that Ryan has created through the years. So yeah, the sale, it's liquidation is a bad word, but we're just trying to do like lowest prices in a sense to help, get people to move, but also turns people on the label, because a lot of people don't buy stuff, when it's full price. So, if you're wondering like what we're doing over there, because the movies look weird, this gives you a chance to get them super cheap. There's also a free shipping threshold, so $100 in the US, I think 150 Canada, and then like 200 everywhere else or something. And you can get free shipping on that, because shipping is another thing that kills most of our customers, because you go to order something, you order one thing, it's like $30 to get it to them, so we have a lot of people that don't buy because of shipping, and this allows them, we'll eat the shipping, but it also helps us. So there's the big positive, because it's making movies super cheap, the cheapest that we can make them, without actually taking a loss, but also paying for shipping ourselves, which is a huge thing. That's going to be 30, 40, $50,000 in shipping fees that we're going to provide for, because $6 adds up, with each order, or and plus if they hit over a certain weight, of course that goes up. But anyways, yeah, so on the sale, it's a site-wide sale. I think 99% of the stuff is on sale, whether it's just a few bucks to even $10. We have some movies on there for $14.99 with the slipcover. Not sure how long we'll do it. Probably do it like for maybe a week or two. But yeah, they're available, now, and yeah, they ship. We're not combining orders with past orders just because we really need to get this stuff out of there, and we don't have like WNUF and Frogman in house yet. So if we sit on it and wait, we're not really getting rid of the product in order to move, and that's the whole point. Um, and yeah, so that's what we're doing now. So if you want records, cheap movies, with the quality still 100% up, we don't really skip out on our quality of stuff. We, put a lot of money into our slip covers and packaging and extras, and movies are a little too cheap, I think, but we really, it kind of helps people, but it helps us too. Saves some money, but also gets people turned on a label if they've been on the fence for a while. So
Do you have anything else that you want to talk about before we let you go that we should have talked about? Anything you want to cover that we didn't cover?
no, I mean, I just hope that people, realize, like, it's not trying to be like, negative on anybody. I just think it's just facts about the nature of the business. I'm not harping on anybody. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad about if you want to collect movies like you do stamps and baseball cards, that's your prerogative. You're still supporting companies and preservation, so there's nothing wrong with that. I just hope that you watch them. That's all. I mean, I just want people to watch movies, and I would rather you watch something new than rewatch Suspiria again. I've seen Suspiria a lot too, but spread your wings a little bit. Take a chance. There was um, I think it was Janet Pearson at South by. She's no longer the head programmer there, but she was for many, 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 many years. But Janet Pearson said something one time at a screening I was at, that you haven't seen your favorite movie yet because you're not giving it a chance. And that really kind of, like, that hit. I was like, man, that's probably right. I mean, there's so many movies out there, and you have no idea. You have no idea because you're not watching it, because you don't have a lot of time on this earth. You don't have a lot of time to watch movies sometimes, because work and life and everything else gets in the way. When you do watch a movie, you want to watch something that maybe is your comfort movie, puts you in a good mood. I totally get it. But maybe branch out a little bit. Watch something that maybe you don't think you would watch, or maybe in a genre. Maybe if you're not into like art house cinema, you grab what you think is, what people say is the number one art house cinema, art house movie in the world. Give that a shot. Just see if you like it. I do hope people take more chances, because your favorite genre might not even be discovered. You may discover something about yourself that you like that you don't know. It's a wide variety of things. Music is the same way, which is a lot easier to listen to because it's 3 minutes versus hour and a half, 2 hour movie. But yeah, I want people to experience things, and I think that's sometimes the most gratifying thing, is when you discover something on your own, or something that you don't know that you liked. It can really kind of consume you and take over. I see it all the time. People will watch a movie from a director, and they're like, I got to watch every movie from this director now. That's the whole point. You achieved what you're supposed to do. But I want people to experience things and give things a chance. You don't think that you're better than any movies, because you're not, you know. I mean, if you don't like something, you don't like something. Not if everybody liked the same thing, this would be very boring. We'd have nothing to talk about because no one would be able to argue or fight or, talk, champion something. That's the whole point, is you want to champion these movies that are lesser known. Um, I just that sort of thing. But again, I'm not harping on anybody. I'm not giving anybody a hard time. I think everybody's doing the right thing. I think maybe sometimes our attitude towards it can be a little much. Take a step back, reflect, look at yourself, and do you disappoint your parents if they see you talk like that? That's that sort of thing. But anyways, it's I do want people to enjoy things and enjoy the time that you do have here, because it is limited, you know. And I don't think we really think about that sometimes. Just to leave it in a more I always think this helps me, but I try to picture myself. I know this is a really weird way to end the show, but sometimes I picture myself like, if I'm like, when you're dead, whether you believe in heaven or hell or not, like, everything's just gone, everything's just turned off, everything's just silent. But you don't even realize that it's silent. You don't realize the darkness because you're gone. That's a kind of a depressing thing to think about. Just take a step back and try to enjoy your time more, because when you're gone, man. Whether you believe in heaven or hell or not, I don't have the answer to any of that. But I always take a step back when, I'm even depressed or something I take a step back and I'm like, does this really matter? Because if I'm going to spend so many hours thinking about this negative thing, that's hours that I'm taking away from something I should be enjoying, or, thinking about more in a more positive light. Because, I mean, there's this movie, right? We'll get back to the movies because that's what people want to hear. There's this movie from Stephen Norrington called The Last Minute. He did it after he did Blade, and it was a movie that no one really heard of. He put it out. I think Palm Pictures put out the DVD. It's never hit Blu-ray or anything, but it's called The Last Minute. And you just have to watch the first like 5 minutes of this movie, because the lead character, your protagonist, is talking to the camera, and he goes down. He has this monologue. I can't memorize it word for word, but he says, your life doesn't start until a certain age, because you don't really remember anything when you're little. Of all the hours that you spend sleeping, you're between 6 to 8 hours a day. The time that you spend at your job, 6 to 8 hours a day, you only have that 8 hours in your life. But part of that is driving to work, driving home from work, doing yard work, eating, taking a shower, all this stuff. How many hours do you actually have in your day that you get to enjoy life? And at the end of his monologue, he asks you, what did you do today? And then the movie starts. I watched that movie years and years ago, and I think about that every single day of my life, because even though it's a fictitious movie, it's fiction, it's a movie, it kind of hits the nail on the head of how much actual time you do have here if you take out all the time you sleep and eat and all that other stuff, which I do. We enjoy sleep. I get it. But, you sleep your life away or something like that. I mean, that's the whole point, is that he's asking the time that you are alive and you're well and you're thinking, how are you spending that time? And I always ask people that, maybe I'm just because I've had the recent deaths in my family, I think more about this, but I do think we should enjoy our time a lot more on this planet, or whatever the hellscape we're on half the time. But anyways, close it out with that. Watch The Last Minute by Stephen Norrington. It's super good. It's super, super good. I wish he made more movies, but he didn't. So